Thing set. So hopefully my screen is visible and all have joined. So let we start today's session. First of all, we complete the few things that we left in the last lecture for the efficient frontier, right? And then we go to the MATLAB session where also we are lagging in completing the topics related to the bonds and the annuities and the loan, right? So that we can move to the portfolio optimization in the MATLAB also in the next week. Okay, so let me complete this efficient frontier that we have discussed last time. Hopefully you have gone through this and get your concept clear. So we have seen that there are opportunity set, right? That opportunity set is defined by this curve and all points inside this curve, right? So these all are feasible points or opportunity set means possible portfolio, right? Possible investment portfolio. Now out of that all are not efficient. Out of that all are not efficient. The efficient portfolio is defined by Markowitz and it is said that the efficient portfolio is that which gives me the highest return for a given risk or it has a least risk for a given return. So we are in the process of deriving the efficient frontier which are located actually from this point E up to this point F if we not allow any short selling. If we allow short selling, this curve will extend further, right? So we are in a process of deriving this opportunity as this efficient frontier, which is a subset of the opportunity set. So I hope this part is clear to you. So now to derive this efficient frontier. Now derivation of efficient frontier means what? I have to find the weight vector. I have to find W bar, right? For n security, W1, W2 up to Wn. How much is the weight of security 1, security 2 up to security n in my portfolio so that with the given risk and return, I am on this particular portion of this graph, right? So that is my aim. So for that, we have seen that we have to frame an optimization problem. Okay. And last time we have solved one optimization problem. Now here the optimization problem is very similar. We have to minimize the risk sigma p square, which we have already written in a matrix form W transpose sigma W, where sigma is a covariance matrix. W is the matrix of weight vector, right? It contains all the weights, and U here is a matrix of all ones, right? So it is actually a n cross 1. Sorry, it is written 1 cross n, but it is n cross 1 vector, right? So this should be corrected. It is to be n cross 1 vector. So just correct it. And E is here matrix of the expected returns of the individual security, right? So it is again a column vector or column matrix ER1, ER2 up to ERN. This is the expected value of the individual security. And we have seen how to calculate all these values, right? So this is our task, minimize sigma p square such that there are restrictions or constraint on this optimization problem. What are the constraints? First of all, the summation of the weight should be equal to 1. So in a matrix form, it is written like this, W transpose U equal to 1 that we have seen, and specified return here. So compared to the previous optimization problem that we have used for deriving MVP, minimum variance portfolio. Now here there is one more constraint, and that constraint is we have specified this ERP. What is this ERP? Expected return from portfolio. So we have given one value, right? We have given one value. So this is my expected return from portfolio. So when I construct a portfolio, there is an aim. I want a 10%, 12%, 13%, 15% return, expected return. And based on that, I can take a risk, right? Obviously, the rule is that high risk, high return, right? That is a rule. But what its value should be, that should be optimized. Okay. So I have to specify this ERP. This is a constant value. So my W transpose into E is equal to ERP. Again, this E is a vector of the return, expected return of the individual security. So to solve this optimization problem, we have one objective function, W transpose sigma W, and two restrictions or two constraint, two equality constraint. I use the Lagrangian multiplier method. Okay, this is the method to solve this nonlinear equality constraint optimization problem. We have seen this earlier, but this has now two restrictions, two equalities, right? Two constraints. So I write a Lagrangian equal to my objective function W transpose sigma W plus one unknown parameter, which is a scalar lambda 1 multiplied by the equation of the first equality by taking all the things on left hand side and making right hand side equal to 0. So it is W transpose U minus 1 equal to 0. So it is W transpose U minus 1 and then plus W2, which is again this lambda 2 is a scalar constant, which is Lagrange multiplier, into the equation of the second equality constraint, that is W transpose E minus ERP, right? And that I will write because we have to write this equation in such a way that the right hand side should be equal to 0. So this is the equation. This is the method to solve the optimization problem. You might not have studied it, but it's very simple. It's based on partial derivative. After framing the Lagrangian, we have to apply the partial derivative del L with respect to all the whole weight vector del W bar. It is a differentiation of this L with respect to the weight vector. So it is a matrix. You use the matrix calculus that we have already seen in this previous slide, these three rules. So I have mentioned these three rules to calculate the basic matrix calculus. OK, so we use this and we have to make this del L by del W bar equal to 0, del L by del W1 equal to 0 and del L by del lambda 2 equal to 0. Now this three equation, if you solve, you find the values of lambda 1, lambda 2 and substitute in your equation, you will get this optimized value of the weight vector. So ultimately we have to find the optimized value of the weight vector. The solution of these three I am leaving to you, right? It is slightly complicated, but you try it. We have solved one problem, such problem for MVP. This is slightly complicated, but you try it. OK, you will find this optimized weight vector WP bar is equal to G bar plus ERP into H bar. You can see it will be a function of this specified expected return from portfolio. And it is a linear function of it because this G bar and H bar comes to be constant. It comes to be constant. So that G bar is given by this equation, which I have written here, B sigma inverse U minus A sigma inverse E divided by D. And similarly, H is C sigma inverse E minus A sigma inverse U divided by D, where A, B, C and D, these are constant, depends on this U, which is vector of ones, depends on the sigma, which is the covariance matrix, which is specified, and E, which is the expectation matrix, expectation of individual security, that is also specified. So all ultimately this G and H depends on only three quantities, that is U, sigma and E. U is always a constant, sigma is specified, E is also specified and known. So if you calculate A, B, C, D, you know G and H. And if you refer to this equation, it's a linear equation. The weight is related to the expected return by this linear equation. It is WP bar equal to G bar plus EP into ERP into H bar. This G bar and H bars are vectors which we can calculate by using this equation. OK, and if you substitute this WP in sigma P square, you get the risk corresponds to this particular weight. And now with this specified ERP, you get for ERP, you get some sigma P square, right? So if you have any specified ERP, you get a sigma P square. So all other ERP you can calculate and you able to know this efficient frontier. So this equation WP equal to G plus ERP into H and then sigma P square equal to WP transpose sigma WP. This calculates the efficient frontier, right? We know we are specifying the expected return from portfolio, and from that we calculate the corresponding risk of the portfolio. So I hope this is clear. And this equation is called MVL, minimum variance line equation, MVL equation. So I hope this is clear. You just try to derive this, right? Use the matrix calculus and try to derive it yourself. You can take the help of the book, but it is better you try it yourself. I have derived one such in the last lecture, OK, for MVP. So I hope up to this point it is clear. This is very important. Now let me go further in the analysis of this, and we have seen this sigma P square equal to WP transpose into sigma into WP. And what is WP? We have derived it is linearly related to ERP by this equation G plus ERP into H, and G and H are depending on A, B, C, D, E and ultimately on sigma and U and E, right? So let me substitute all this. So I substitute for WP transpose, which is G plus H into ERP transpose into sigma into G plus H into ERP. And then I substitute for G and H. So I substitute for G and H. in terms of A, B, C, D, E. And by little manipulation, you have to apply some matrix algebra. By using some manipulation, you get this equation. This also you can do yourself because I'm avoiding this simple mathematics, right, which is matrix algebra. I'm assuming you know all this and you can do it. If you find confusion or if you have any doubt, we can solve it in the next lecture, right? But you try it yourself. The analysis is extremely important. You try to do it yourself. Derivations I will not ask in any exam, but important to know how it is coming because that helps us to derive something more. OK. So if I do this, I ultimately come to this equation. Sigma p square equal to C by D into ERP minus A by C whole square plus 1 by C. Now, if you refer to this equation, this gives us the relation between sigma p square and ERP, you can say. So that's what we want. We want a relation between sigma p, actually sigma and ER. Remember, sigma is a standard deviation and its square is a variance. OK, so whether we get a variance or standard deviation, it is one of the same thing. We have to not confuse, right? Sigma square is a variance and sigma is a standard deviation. OK, so we get here this points. We get here this points, which specifies the sigma p square for given ERP. And we are not interested in any other point. We are not interested in whole opportunity set. We are interested only in efficient frontier. So that equation is now relation between ERP and sigma p square. So if you plot this equation, this is the equation of parabola, you can see, but it is in a mean variance space. So if you plot sigma p square versus ERP, this is the equation of the parabola, right? This is the equation of the parabola. You can compare it with the standard equation of parabola, right? This you can compare with the standard equation of parabola. But usually we plot in a ERP sigma p plane. So that is return and standard deviation, because we are not taking sigma p square on the x-axis, we take the sigma p. So we have to take a root of it. So this equation becomes then the hyperbola. This equation becomes the hyperbola in mean standard deviation space. So remember, this is the equation of parabola if you sketch ERP versus sigma p square, and it is an hyperbola if you sketch ERP versus sigma p. OK, so don't confuse with it. And if you sketch it in ERP sigma p plane, it is an hyperbola with vertex given by these two. This A by C, it is whole square, so it is A by C, and this 1 by under root C, because this is 1 by C, so it is becoming 1 by under root C whole square. So it gives us the vertex of this hyperbola at this point, 1 by under root C and A by C. So here it is plotted. You can see it is plotted here, and this is the vertex of this hyperbola, where you can see it is point 1 by under root C on the x-axis and A by C on the y-axis. So what 1 by under root C is actually? This point is what? It is a global MVP, because there is only one point. Remember, minimum variance portfolio is only one. There are so many efficient portfolios. But minimum variance portfolio is only one. It is a point, while the efficient portfolio is a graph. It is a hyperbola we have seen in ERP sigma p plane. So this entire portion above this global MVP is my efficient frontier, right? But this vertex is specifying the global minimum variance portfolio. And this equation that we have derived, WP equal to G plus ERP into H, is very important. It is relation between ERP and weight, and that is a linear equation. That is the linear equation. But relation between sigma p square and ERP is a non-linear, and that is the hyperbola in mean standard deviation space. I hope it is clear, right? Further, you can use the geometry, and we know that the hyperbola has two asymptotes. The hyperbola has two asymptotes, right? And passing through the center of the graph, the center is this point 0 and A by C, and these are the two asymptotes. And from the equation, you can find the slope of this asymptotes, and that will be this. It is C by D here, so it will be under root D by C and minus under root D by C. So these two are the asymptotes of this hyperbola. This is all derived from the geometry equation of the hyperbola. You can recall it, or you can refer to that equation of hyperbola in its properties, right? And if we know the point on this asymptote, it is a straight line, right? And its slope, we can find the equation of this asymptotes also. So you can say this Particularly, I go to this slide. Yes. So this ERP equal to A by C plus under root D by C sigma P and ERP equal to A by C minus under root D by C sigma P. So these two are equation of its asymptotes, because knowing asymptotes is very important for the hyperbola. Knowing vertex is also important. So these are the properties of this hyperbola. So we can define this efficient portfolio on the sigma on the ERP sigma P plane like this. Okay. So I hope this part is clear to all. Based on this, I have framed one example. This is the assignment for today. You have to go through this example. I have specified here this E vector, which is expected return from three securities, ER1, ER2, ER3, and it is given by this matrix. I have specified the covariance matrix. It is the risk of individual security and covariance between the security 1, 2, 1, 3, and 3, 2 like that. OK, and it is always a symmetric matrix. So that is specified. U is always a vector of 1. So in this example, the task is to find the efficient portfolio, right? For the given expected return 1.5%. So ERP is given 1.5, right? So ERP is specified 1.5. E matrix is given, sigma matrix is given, U matrix is already known. It is matrix of 1, vector of 1. So you can use these equations. First you find this. First you find this A, B, C, D. Always approach like this because U, sigma, E are known. So find this matrix A, B, C, D using this equation. I'm not expecting you to remember equation, but you try to solve it. Once A, B, C, D known, you can find G and H. Now once G and H are known, you can see this WP vector can be determined because ERP is specified. OK, so from that you can find WP. Once WP is known, you can find the sigma P square. It is by WP transpose sigma into WP. So this is what done here. So it is solved and you can go through this procedure. And what you find a one point here. You find a one point on this graph, which is one point on the efficient frontier, right? So this is point P. OK, for specified expected return 1.5%. So you can see if I want to earn this much return, I have to take this much risk, right? Which is calculated here. So how much is calculated? That is specified 4.27% of the risk. So if I take a 4.27% of risk, I can get a return of 1.5%. Suppose my expected return will change. So that is now in the next example. So in next example, it is given that now my expectation is changed to 2%. So how much risk will change? Is it linear? No. So now what will be the procedure? Now WP is only related to ERP. It is only related to ERP. WP is linearly proportional to ERP. Sigma P is not, right? Remember. Now G and H already calculated because G and H depends only on the sigma vector and the E vector, which is not changing if I change the ERP. It will remain same because my portfolio consists same three security. So that matrix will not change. So G and H not change. So only ERP will change. So I can easily find new WP corresponds to this new specified expected return. And then if I know WP, I can find corresponding risk. So you can find a second point Q on this portfolio, right? On this graph, which is again an efficient frontier. OK, so you can see this both the points are on the efficient frontier. One will provide me this much return, another provide this much return, but I have to take a different risk. OK, and that all calculation based on the individual return and risk of the security. You can only find the proportional weights in your portfolio, right? Provided your expected calculation of return and risk of the individual securities are correct. I hope this thing is clear, and this is used in practice by all the portfolio manager. Before framing a portfolio, this thing is to be done. The portfolio must be on the efficient frontier. If I decide to invest in 10 security, I have to find W1 to W10. Arbitrarily, I cannot say invest 10, 10, 10% in every security. OK, even though all the 10 securities are standard. I have to go to their historical data. I have to find expected return matrix, the covariance matrix, analyze it, and find this W vector. OK, for my expected return. What is my expected return? OK, and then based on that, I can calculate the risk and the weight vector. I also know how much risk I am taking. If I am able to take my risk appetite, it's that much, then only I should take this risk. OK, any doubt on that? This is very important. Those who want to become analyst. Any doubt so far? Okay, now let me end this session by referring to one last topic, that is the two-fund separation theorem, and then we go to MATLAB. Now we have seen there are some points on the efficient frontier like P point, Q point, and we have seen the weight vector and the ERP are related by linear relation. Okay, so from that there is one theorem derived which is called two-fund separation theorem. So it says that if I know 2 points, if I know 2 points on the efficient frontier, can I find the third point? Yes. It is very simple. If I know any 2 points on the line, I can find the third point because 2 points always define the line. Okay, so I can always find the third point. So from that, this theorem is framed all portfolios on the mean variance efficient frontier can be formed as a linear combination of any two portfolio on the efficient frontier. So if I know any two portfolio on the efficient frontier, I can find the third portfolio, right? So let portfolio P1, P2 be on efficient frontier with the different expected return ERP1 and ERP2. I can frame the third portfolio, which is also efficient portfolio Q. And how to find it? I have to define one real constant, say alpha. I have to define one real constant, say alpha, such that this my ERQ is equal to alpha into ERP1 plus 1 minus alpha into ERP2. So you can see this ERQ is nothing but linear combination of ERP1 and ERP2, where alpha is some real constants. I have mixed ERP1 and ERP2. So suppose I have two portfolios and I want to frame a third portfolio by having the security of both portfolio 1 and 2, right? And that should be also on the efficient frontier. I can use this simple equation. Let I frame this alpha, right? Alpha can be any real constant and I can have this ERQ. Now, once I find ERQ, I can find the weight vector WQ, right? I can also find the risk corresponds to that sigma Q square, right? And this WQ vector is also you can find if you know the WP1 vector and WP2 by same linear relation, WQ equal to alpha WP1 plus 1 minus alpha WP2. And this is all because we have a linear equation of MVL, right? That MVL is minimum variance line. Okay, so that because of that linear relation between W and ERP, we get this. So if I know two portfolio, the third portfolio is just a linear combination of it. It's expected return as well as the weight vector. And from that, we can find the corresponding risk. OK, so that's what. Now there is an implication, means reverse thing. Any portfolio on MVL can be realized by splitting the available investment amount between just two different efficient portfolio instead of investing in individual assets. So if I have a single portfolio and I want to divert it, So any portfolio on MVL, provided it is on a MVL, it can be realized by splitting the available investment amount between just two different efficient portfolios instead of investing in individual assets. So if I know this equation of this MVL, I can do this manipulation and I can frame the other efficient portfolio. The thing is we need to know only the equation of MVL. That's it. So I hope this procedure is clear to all or any doubt. So in the next week, we will now go to capital market line CML and capital asset pricing model CAPM. And I am targeting to finish this unit 1 in the next week. So by referring to CML, capital asset pricing model and return generating process and the calculation of the portfolio performance evaluation. So all this I want to complete in the next week, at least so that we can start the MATLAB experiment based on this portfolio optimization. So I hope this particular thing is clear. Any doubt? I take a pause of 1 minute. If you have any doubt in this particular, just a minute. This is not closing. Yeah. So in any particular theoretical topic, you can ask me. Now I will go to MATLAB after taking a break of 1 minute. I expect some answer from you. But unfortunately, I'm not getting, so I'm assuming all things you are getting. Yeah, so shall we proceed with MATLAB? So all right, let me open the MATLAB online. So I have opened it. Let me minimize it. Okay. Now last MATLAB session, I have introduced you to some functions related to the financial data analytics, which are analyzing and computing cash flow. And I have given one experiment assignment, right? Because last Friday we have not practical session because of the holiday, but I have given you one task. Hopefully you have done it. So I have introduced this functions to calculate the present value and the future value if you have given a fixed periodic payment or if we have given a varying cash flow, right? So whether it is a fixed periodic payment or varying cash flow. So whatever be the given, we can find the present value of the cash flow, future value of the cash flow, and there are some functions related to rates and return. Okay, so we have functions like EFFRR, which is effective rate of return calculation, IRR, internal rate of return if there are periodic payments, XIRR, it is again internal rate of return for non-periodic cash flow. So that is very important. Also NOMRR, which is nominal rate of return. Okay, so these are the important functions that we have introduced last time, and I have given some examples to explain it, and hopefully you have done it. And I have given this particular assignment, this experiment number 1B. Also, I have given this solution. Hopefully you have tried yourself and verified it. If you have any difficulty, you can tell me. Otherwise, I will go to what we need to do today because we are lagging much more. I want to know if there is any difficulty in that particular assignment. I have given already the solution. The Excel file is also I have uploaded. So all things are with you. For today's session also, I have uploaded this particular document for MATLAB as well as Excel files are uploaded. But here now some Excel files are without answer. Earlier it was with answer. Now it will be without answer. So you have to do yourself. Is there any difficulty in interpreting this or? Yeah, any doubt or anything that you want? So we can go to the today's session because I will give you 3 experiments today. Experiment number 1, C, D, and E. Not telling anything which makes me to assume that everything is clear. Because this is the slightly different kinds of subject, so you need to be very careful while dealing with it. It is not although a difficult thing. So I wait some half minute more to get any response. If it is OK, we move ahead. All right, so let me assume this is clear. So let me go to the today's session. So today we continue with the financial data analytics and we see the annuities, loan amortization and depreciation. So there are functions related to this in the MATLAB. Let me go through the function related to annuities. We have introduced these annuities in the theory, right? Annuities comes for the pension plan. So if you invest something in some pension plan and you get a periodic return, right? Also on loan side, you are taking some loan of lump sum amount and then you are paying a periodic amount, mostly monthly EMI, which we call EMI in the common term, equated monthly installment. So there are some functions related to this. Also, that is the loan taking is also called amortization. So amortization schedule. What is meaning of amortization schedule? That you are taking a loan, then periodically you have to pay the EMI. Then as the time progresses, your interest and principal amount will get, you can say, modified, or the balance amount will get reduced. Suppose you have taken a loan of 5 lakh and then you start paying EMIs, then your balance principal amount will get reduced when you pay the EMI at after end of the every month. And also your interest amount will be calculated on the balance on the next month. So there is a whole structure schedule. So that is called amortization schedule. We have seen that in theory in one example. Now we will see in a practical. And there are some other functions also related to depreciation. So the depreciation functions are useful when we do the fundamental analysis, when we read the balance sheet of the companies, right? So that the depreciations are taken into consideration. Okay, yearly depreciation to the equipment, the because of the, you can say, the equipment will lose its value. Some values will get depreciated or lost as the time progresses. So there are some depreciation associated with the equipment, machineries, computers, all right. All things are their values get depreciated. So the valuation of the company, right, depends on the depreciation of the equipment that the company has purchased in the particular time. So it gets depreciated as the time progress. Okay, based on that, the company can plan for capital expenditure, capex. That term you might have heard. Now let me go through this function today in the MATLAB. So let I first introduce you this function annu rate, annu rate. What is that? Periodic interest rate of annuity. So let I open this and let me type help of annu rate. And you can see this function will calculate the interest rate for annuity. So if you know the number of periods, suppose I have invested in some pension plan and it says that it will pay me monthly for 5 years. Then what is number of period? 60. So we know the number of periods. What is P? P is periodic payment. The company will also specify at the end of the month you will get 7,000 rupees as a pension or annuity. So that P is also known. PV. PV is what? Present value of annuity, means today what I am investing, right? That is known. Suppose I have invested 5 lakh. So it is a 5 lakh. Then these two parameters are optional, FV and due. FV is the future value. Sometimes the future values are known, but it is in a practice, we mostly know the present value because we have invested something. So either you can specify PV or FV, right? So mostly we do calculation based on PV because we have invested today. So we know the present value. Sometimes if present value is not known in some case, we can use the future value. The relation between present and future value we have seen. And this due. Due is an option which can be only 1 or 0. So what is that mean? The due specifies whether the payments are made at beginning or end of the period. Means if I invest today, then I get an annuity started from today or from the next month, right? From the end of the period. So if I invest today and by month end, if I will get, it is end of the period. Usually we get at the end of the period. So by default, this future value and due is 0. So if we not specify, then it will be considered as 0, or otherwise if we know, we have to specify it, right? But usually we get the annuity at the end of the period, so its value is 0. So I have one example here. So let we have interest rate. We have to find interest rate of 4 year. I have made investment for 4 year of say rupees 5,000 and I am getting 130 rupees monthly as an interest at the end of each month, right? Then very simple. How many periods? 4 year means I am getting monthly payment. So 4 into 12 is number of period. 130 is my monthly installment or monthly annuity. 5,000 is my present value, which is my invested amount, right? Then future value, no need to specify because I am specifying present value 0 and due it is end of the month, so it is 0. So based on that, it calculates 0.94%, right? So if I run this command, let me run this. Very simple. It calculates 0.0094, so you have to multiply it. So interest rate here is 0.94%, but this interest rate corresponds to monthly interest rate, right? Because the periodic interest rate written in this example is this 0.94, which when multiplied by 12 gives an annual interest rate. So this is simply, and monthly interest rate, it is for period, rate for a period. So you have to multiply it by 12 to get an annual nominal interest rate, annual, right? It is nominal interest rate. You can use that effective interest rate and other formulas to convert into effective annual rate also. OK, so that is that. We are not going in now complication, simply multiply by 12. So that is the annual nominal rate of return. So I am getting this much of the return. So this is the annuity rate. Similarly, I have another function. There is an annu term. It is used to calculate number of periods. It is just a reverse calculation, so that you can also do help annu term, and you can see based on the parameters, it gives me number of periods, right? It is just a reverse calculation, so that you can refer. OK, usually we not need annu term. Sometimes we need to calculate annu rate, and sometimes we need to calculate the annuity amount. Now, how to calculate this annuity amount? So there are some functions out of that. Let I go to this pay per. So periodic payment of loan or annuity, that is very important, pay per, right? So this function, let I type its help. Out of these so many functions, some functions are most useful. Some other function you can just keep in mind or in the document. Whenever required, we can refer it. Now say this is very important function. It returns the periodic payment of a loan or annuity. So if I know the rate, company usually specify the nominal rate, annual rate, number of periods. If they are paying the annuity monthly, you have to divide this rate by 12. If they are paying annuity half yearly, you have to divide this rate by 2, and so on. The present value, future value, and due. You can input present value, future value, and due. You can make it 00 because usually we get the installments or the annuity at the end of the month or end of the period. So we always make it 0. So likewise, you can calculate the here periodic payment or amount of annuity, amount of annuity. So that's what our experiment is about. So I have shared this document already, and we have to complete this experiment 1C, where I have given data in Excel file in experiment 1C.xls, which I have opened here. Let I go to that file 1C. Sorry, it is 1D. This is 1C. So I've specified this is my investment amount. This is investment date. This is the annuity amount, and we are getting monthly annuity, and total term is 20 years. You have to calculate annual rate of return, and you have to populate this cell, right? You have to populate this cell. OK, so I have not given you the annual rate of return, but you have to find it. OK, so that you can do. So I have set this particular file and you can calculate it. OK, so that particular thing you have to do in the experiment 1C, but you have to read the data from Excel file. OK, and then from that Excel file, you can read it in table. From the table, you can input that particular thing to the function pay per that we have seen. And from that, whatever you get is R. It is rate of return monthly multiplied by 12. Also, it is in a fraction value, so multiplied by 100 to get a percentage, and then write back result in Excel file. All right. So that you can do. OK. So I hope this particular thing is clear. This experiment 1C. I expect you to complete. Don't be passive. Then we now go to the next experiment that is related to loan amount. So for that, we have to use this function amortize. So let me take the help of this in the MATLAB. So I type this help amortize. You see, what is this? This gives me a complete schedule of the loan. So let I go to that. Yes, amortization schedule. It returns the principal and interest portion of a loan paid by periodic payment and computes the remaining balance of the original loan amount and the periodic payment. So it gives you a complete picture. So again, you have to input rate, because when you take a loan, the nominal rate is specified, that is annual rate. Then you have to convert into monthly if you are paying the monthly installment. OK, number of periods, the present value. Present value means your loan value. So whatever your loan value, number of periods. Suppose 20 years loan and paying monthly, so 20 into 12 is number of periods. Nominal rate is say 8%, then 8 divided by 12 is your rate. It should not be in percentage, it should be in a fraction. Okay. And here there are options to write the FV and due, but usually we go with the default value. What it returns? There's four things. It returns the principal, remaining, interest for the period, and the balance, and the P, which is your EMI, right? So it returns all these four values. So that you have to find, and that you have to find in the next experiment. So you can see this is the principal vector that it will return. One cross n period vector of principal paid in each period, one cross n period vector of the interest paid in each period, one cross n period vector of remaining balance of the loan in each period, and P is a scalar payment per period that is constant throughout the period, right? That is our EMI value. So in my experiment 1, D, I have given data in another Excel file, experiment1d.xls. For loan taken from a bank, find the table of principal paid, interest paid, balance amount at the end of period, and EMI value. Write the result back in the Excel file. So you have to write the result back. Remember, here input is Excel, output is also Excel. So I have given this Excel file, which is experiment 1D. So I have given this data, the date from which loan started, the loan amount, the term, the annual nominal rate, and frequency is monthly. And you have to populate this whole table for period. So how many entries will be there? It is 30 multiplied by 12. 360 entries should be there. So at the period number, end of the period number 1, 2, 3, 4, you have to write here period end number 1, 2, 3, 4 up to 360. What is principal paid, interest paid, balance of the loan, and EMI. And that's how when you take a loan from some companies give you this table, and that's how this is calculated. So I hope you get this idea. I'm not getting any answer, so I'm assuming it is all clear. So that is about experiment 1D. So small experiment. Now last we go to the bond yield and bond pricing. So there are some functions related to the bond yield and bond pricing. I give you 1 minute break to think on this to experiment 1C and D. If you have any doubt so far in objective, you can ask me, or otherwise we go to the next financial data analytics, which is bond yield and bond price. Still, we take one more lab session to complete this fixed income securities and other simple calculations, and then we go to the portfolio optimization in MATLAB. Okay, so I hope everything is clear. Frequently I'm asking because if at any stage if you have doubt, we can clear it itself. So now we have a function for pricing and computing yields of fixed income security rise bond. So you recall the bond price are varying with time, right? That we have discussed in the theory class. Also the yield to maturity, YTM. That is very important parameter for bond because bonds are of two types, the zero coupon bond or the coupon bond, right? Whether it is zero coupon bond or coupon bond, the price will get changed with respect to time, right? And the yield to maturity will also change. And we have seen the price yield graph in the theory, right? So how to find the bond price and how to find the yield to maturity, right? So these are very important things. So there are some functions given in the MATLAB related to this fixed income securities like bond. OK, so we can calculate the price of the bond, the yield. Also, there are other terms like convexity and duration that we have not studied yet, but it is a deep study of this bond. So we skip right now the convexity and duration of the bond. So don't right now consider these two terms. There are some functions related to calculate the convexity and duration of the bond. We are interested in these two terms, the bond price and the yield. OK, and the accrued interest, because the bond may be issued in the past and you purchase it afterwards. So there for that period, there is an accrued interest. So sometimes we need to also know what is accrued interest. OK, so this term is also very important. So there are some functions which gives us the value which calculate this accrued interest. So this function is very important, bond price. This yield to maturity, that is also very important. Then there are other functions that you can refer, right? Accrued interest, so that ACRU bond, so that gives you the accrued interest. Also, if you have a bond which only has a single payment, then also there are functions related to such, means you have zero coupon bond. Then also there are some special functions for such bonds. If you have a periodic paying bond, means fixed coupon bonds, then also there are some functions related to that. So we have total return of fixed coupon bond. So there are such functions for the special cases, so that you can refer on the MATLAB. Let me go to this example. So we are now using the bond price function. So let me go through the help of this function, bond price. Help price. So you can see what this is doing. It calculates the price of the bond with given data. What is that data that we have to give? This. If you know the yield, sometimes we know the yield to maturity. The coupon rate is always known. If you refer to any particular bond document, the coupon rate is known, nominal coupon rate. The settlement date. Here we have to specify date. So now be convergent with the date formats. Settlement date means your date of purchase, and maturity. So maturity means at which date it is getting matured. So these two are dates, coupon rate. These three things are known. Yield, you might knowing, right? So you can enter it and you can calculate the bond price, and it returns two things, the price as well as the accrued interest. It gives you two things, the price and the accrued interest. OK, so that particular data you can obtain using this function, the price and accrued interest. Now, apart from these four compulsory parameters, there are some optional parameter. There are some optional parameter which also you can specify, like the face value of the bond, means its maturity value. Then there are some rule, end month rule, means you get a payment at the end of the month or beginning of the month. Usually we get at the end of the month, so need not to specify all this value. It is assumed to be its default value. The issue date means original issue date of the bond, the first coupon date, the last coupon date, right? The period of the coupons, also basis. So these all are explained here, right? So if you have some more parameters, we are happy to have only some compulsory parameters. If you have some more parameters like basis, day count basis. So in some cases, some companies are counting 365 days, some companies are counting 360 days per year, right? There are different countries which are using different standard. We are using ISMS standard, right? We are using this actual 365 ISMS standard. So don't worry about it, right? We use it actual. We use the default. So don't worry about it. End of the month rule, we use this 0. We use the 1, which is default value, right? We use the default value. So security pays coupon on the last day of the month. OK, nobody will pay in advance. OK, then the first coupon date, last coupon date are need to specify in case of the irregular or normal first coupon date. So that may need some time. Start date, right? And the face value. So if we have that data available, we can provide it. OK, there are so many other things which we can provide. Let me use a simple example to study this. So I have the information of yield, coupon rate, say 8%. So it is 0.08. The yield to maturity is 7%. So yield is this. Settlement is means I purchased on 17th May 2000. So I give it number, date number 17 May 2000. Remember, you can here specify in any format, but that should be correct format, right? We have seen this. Then maturity is mentioned here. OK, and all these parameters are input to these four parameters, and I can find the bond price, or otherwise you can directly enter these constants, right? Let I write this in the MATLAB. Control C, and what I do in this is Control V. Based on this data, it returns this is the bond price. So if you have this much of yield, this much of coupon rate, purchasing on this date with maturity on this date, then the price of this bond is this 100.3503. So you have to pay this much, right? There is a reverse calculation. Usually we don't know the yield. We want to calculate the yield. So I directly go to that. There is a yield calculation. So you can see This is a settlement date, maturity date, issue date is known, first coupon date is known, last coupon date is known, right? And I want to calculate some data, so that is also possible. Then here the price of the bond is known, okay? The coupon rate is known, the number of periods per year is known, how many periods, okay? And then I want to calculate the bond yield, that is also possible. So there are some examples for it. I take only a simple example. Sometimes some things are not known, which are not compulsory, and still you want to specify, you can write not a number. So that is not known. OK, so that's you can use. So let me take this function. So let I make this settle and all that. First of all, I copy this. Let I copy this in my MATLAB. So all this information are there. Then I copy the other information which is known. I give you the small experiment based on this. So be concentrated. And then finally, I call this function yield to do the analytics based on all this data. And I know the yield from this. So now I press an enter. So yield is 0.065, so 6.59%. So this bond, which has all these properties, right? With price this, coupon rate this, number of periods of payment is this, end month rule is 1, means it will pay at the end of the month. All things are known. The purchase date, the maturity date, issue date, first coupon date, last coupon date, all things are known. So I have input this to analytics, and then it has returned me this 0.0659. The theoretical calculation, we have seen simple calculations in the theory class. OK, so you can recollect and correlate with it. I hope this thing is clear. So this is single bond example. Likewise, you can have a multiple bond. So you can have a bond portfolio. So this is bond portfolio. I have purchased 2 bonds on the same date, which has different maturity. OK, and I also want to calculate the cash flow date, means on which dates I will get the coupons and the maturity. So there is a function CF dates. There is a function CF date. OK, so using this function CF date, you can also calculate the cash flow date. So I just copy paste it in MATLAB and run it. And you can see, you can use this function CF dates. You just type help to this. You can see. But these dates are given as a MATLAB serial date number. So you can convert into actual date using the function that we have studied. OK, so don't confuse with the dates that are handled by MATLAB. It will handle by some serial number. OK, you have to convert into the actual date, which we have introduced in a very first session. OK, so you can see, and it is for the 2 cases, 2 bonds, right, and have different maturities. So one bond already matured in 7, another bond matured in 10. So some data for the bond matured in 7 is none, not a number. OK, so you can see, and these are the dates you have to convert into the actual date that I'm leaving to you. OK, and finally, I have given this example 1E. So that is your assignment for this week. So you have 3 days holiday. So you have to do so many things, the assignment in theory and practical. And there are 3 small examples. The last example is slightly tricky. So I am just reading it and making you, I'm giving you some hints. So you have to go to the website of NSE India. You all know the National Stock Exchange website. So you have to go to that website, click on bond section. So there are so many sections, equity, bonds. So click on bond section. I have written the instruction, go accordingly. Find security, Housing and Urban Development Corporation of India, HUDCO, bond series. So that is a company, government company, which issues frequently the bonds. They are collecting money from the people. They are frequently issuing this bond. So click on this. OK, go to this security, click on this security with ISIN this. Now this is the name of the company which has issued so many bonds. So out of that, select particularly bond with this ISIN. Every security listed on exchange has ISIN number that you know, right? So click on this security. From that, find the bond issue date, maturity date, coupon rate, face value, coupon payment frequency in Excel file. So all these things you have to copy in Excel file. OK, and assume that we have purchased the bond on 1st January 2015. So to get its price, use the historical data, which is also available on the same website. So you have to find the historical data to find the bond price on that purchase date and copy this value in the Excel file. And then you have to run the analytics, right, in the MATLAB. So read this Excel file in MATLAB and run the analytics to find the yield to maturity, YTM. So if I have this particular bond, this is a practical example. You have to copy this data from NSE website, get it. You have to calculate yield to maturity and cash flow date. Means on which date I will get which coupon value and in which date is maturity and how much is my maturity value. And write the result back in Excel and prepare this database. So I hope this task is clear. If any doubt, then you can ask me. We are running out of time, so quickly we end this session, but I wait for half a minute. If you have any doubt, you can tell me. But this all things you have to do yourself by taking the interest, because you have taken the selective subject, so your interest matters. Otherwise, I know everything. So I am unsharing my screen now. So if you have any doubt, any comment or any doubt, let I stop recording.